Good morning. This is VirtualPBX-admin training. Sorry for the slightly late start. We're just dealing with a couple of technical issues. It looks like my audio is coming through clear. So our training here will be about roughly an hour and a half, possibly a little longer. We're going to cover all the Dash features. Feel free to make use of YouTube's chat feature to ask any questions. And without further ado, let's go ahead and get started here. So on the screen here, you see our Dash login page, which is at dash.virtualpbx.com. You can also get there from the virtualpbx.com website. Just look for the blue bar that's going across the top, and there'll be a login link there. Typically speaking, I do recommend that you bookmark that page, especially if you're a system admin, so that way you can get here easily if you need to. Now, to log in, we need your email address, we need your password, and your account name. Typically, the account name matches your company name. For your email address, you want to make sure it's in all lowercase letters. For the account name, you want to match however it's set up with us. Right? So if you had all caps, then it should be in all caps. Now, if for some reason you don't have your password or you forgot, then down here at the bottom right, just above the sign-in bar, we have a forgot your info link. You can click on that, flips it around. We still need your email address, right? Every user has to have a unique email address on the account. So that's your identifier. And then down here, we need one of these two pieces of information, right? So we need either the account name or a phone number on the account. And that means a customer-facing phone number. Right? So not like a cell phone number on your user, but a phone number your customers dial to reach your system. Then you click on Reset Password. This system will send you an email with a link to get you logged in. That link is only good to get you logged into your account page to change your password. Once you're done with that, it allows you back out, takes you back here to the login page, so you can retype that password. And you have the option then to click on the check mark in front of Remember Me. All right, so once you get logged in, I'm going to be taken here to our dashboard page. And that's because this is a test account that I logged into several times. For you, especially if it's your first login attempt, right, it's going to take you to your Dash user page. Right? So I can get there, and you can all as well, whenever you want, by clicking on your name at the top right. Then here, this would be where, for instance, you can click where it says password. You could change your password if you need to. Now, because I'm a system admin, I also have the ability to get to the account level settings. The major thing that's changed is typically the time zone, or possibly the display language. Now, this is a test account, as I mentioned. So for you, on the left, you'll have an additional area for billing information. This will let you see things like your current plan, right? Previous invoices, see who the billing contact is, and being able to update your credit card. Now, some of those features, like updating the credit card, are temporarily offline as our billing team is going through an upgrade. So if you need to update your credit card, you're going to need to contact our billing team. It's just our toll-free number, which is 888-825-0800, and this option 5. Also, that first login, the Dash wizard will come up, right? So little pop-ups telling you what certain things are. Once you are done going through all of this, right, over here at the top right, click on the little close box, and then you'll be taken to the dashboard. Dash widget will still keep popping up here. It will also pop up on the Users tab and the Groups tab. Right, up here, so at the top, again, you can click on your name at any time to get to that user page, typically done to change your password. For most of you, to the right of your name, you'll have a DND toggle, right? DND for Do Not Disturb. I don't have it on my user because my user is part of an ACD queue and those two features conflict. So once I was added to the queues, the D&D toggle was removed from my user. Then we've got the little help icon or question mark icon. Now, 3 of these options will always be here. The 4th one only shows up after you've added a device. So let's go through those first 3. So first we have chat with us. This opens up the chat window, typically at the bottom right of your browser window, lets you speak to our support staff, and they can walk you through setting up a feature. Oops. Learn more. This will open up a new tab and take you to our support pages where we have guides with screenshots, and some of them have videos to walk you through setting up particular features or how they work. Right, online store, again, opens a new tab. It takes you to store.virtualpbx.com. This is where you would order things like a VoIP phone or a router. And then the optional one here is the web phone. So again, this only shows up after you've added a web phone device to your user. And then typically by the next time you log in, it will be here. This opens a new tab and takes you to webphone.virtualpbx.net. This allows you to use Chrome or Firefox on a computer to make and receive calls over your internet connection. The web phone does not support the mobile versions of those browsers. Then we got the 3 horizontal line icon here, sometimes referred to as a hamburger icon or just the menu icon. This takes you to other dash features. We'll primarily be here on the dashboard for the vast majority of the training, but we will touch on these other features. Some of these are plan specific, like dynamic caller ID, and that just means you may have to change your plan to get this feature. And then with the logout icon here to the right. Now here in the middle here, we have total users, right? These are the number of people on my account who make and receive calls. And you see here, I have 26 total users. Most of our plans are based on a per user basis, meaning the more users you have, the higher your bill. Then I have total devices. I have 41 on the account, and then a breakdown. Now, Dash was designed with VoIP phones in mind, so that's why they typically show up here first. First up is Softphone. This is a software application that uses your internet connection to make and receive calls, right? So soft for software, phone because it acts like a phone. This includes the VirtualPBX softphone apps, as well as any third-party softphone apps you might be using, like Bria from Counterpath, etc. Next up, we have cell phones. Right? Most people know what a cell phone is. Then we have the SIP phone. This is a physical VoIP phone, right? So it's a piece of hardware, typically connected via Ethernet to your internet connection, right, to your router, make and receive calls right from it. Then we have the web phone. Again, uses Chrome or Firefox on a computer, make and receive calls. Technically, a web phone is a kind of soft phone, right, because it's software, but because it was developed later and added to the Dash platform later, it has a separate heading. And then you see I also have a landline, which again, most of us are familiar with. I have some unregistered devices. This is in relation to my SIP phones. So I have 3 of them that are unregistered, and that just means they're not connected. Right now, for the dashboard, we don't know why. Right? It's just your account is saying, hey, we can't communicate with these 3 devices. That could be they're not plugged in. It could be they might be having some sort of network issue or router setting issue, or it could even be that their ISP is having an outage in their area. Next, we have total numbers. I have 36. Right? These are phone numbers on your account. These are, generally speaking, customer-facing phone numbers. We have 2 breakdowns here, assigned numbers and spare numbers. Assigned number means you're using it, right? Someone can dial that number and speak to somebody or leave a voicemail, send a fax, join a conference. Right, spare number on your account, so it counts towards your allotment of phone numbers, but you're not using it right now, right? So like you had a special promotion running, that promotion ended, you took the number out of service, right? Or you're about to expand into a new market, which has a different area code. You grabbed a phone number ahead of time so you can start preparing your marketing materials for that location early. Next breakdown, USDID and US toll-free. Right? US toll-free, US Canada toll-free, right? 800 number, 888, all the way down to 833. USDID just means a US local phone number, right? So a number in New York City would count under USDID, as would one, say, in El Paso, Texas. You can have international numbers if you want. If you're interested in adding one, you're going to need to send an email to our porting team. That's porting at virtualpbx.com. They need to know the city and country that you're interested in having a number in. If that's something we can add to your account, they will let you know. And if there's additional requirements, they will also let you know that. Right? If we can't get the number for whatever reasons, we'll also indicate that to you as well. Conference bridges, this just means I have enabled conferencing on 3 of my users, meaning 3 of my staff members can host or moderate a conference. Now, if we go over here to the top right, my main number block here, looks like I've got 6 phone numbers. So these 6 phone numbers all behave in the same fashion. They all go to the same location, right? They're going to all play the same main greeting, for instance. Next, I have conference room number. You can have multiple conference room numbers if you want. They all end up going to the same set of conference rooms, and then you just enter the conference room number and the PIN number. The Faxbox number, you can have the one main Faxbox number. This is your inbound fax number, right? So this is what people dial to send a fax to you. All right, company directory. This lets you download a CSV file that shows your staff members' names, their extensions, and their primary devices. The soft phone directory, this is for use specifically with the VirtualPBX desktop soft phone application, right? So for use on Windows or Mac OS. You would download this file and then upload it to your desktop VirtualPBX soft phone app, and that will allow you to see the status of the other soft phones on your account, right? So if my coworker Bob, if we both have soft phones and he's on his soft phone, I'll be able to see, oh, he's on a call. So I should not call him right now. Now, if your staff members have multiple devices, the soft phone directory on your soft phone app is not going to show the status of those other devices. Store discount code, just for being a Dash customer, you get a discount code for use in our online store. That's store.virtualpbx.com. And then we have the account realm. Every account has its own account realm. It's used in a couple things. One, it's one of the pieces of information you need to program a third-party soft phone. The other thing, or third-party device in general. The other thing it's used for is when you're sending a fax out. So on Dash, to send a fax out, you actually don't need to log into your Dash account, right? You just need to create an email from the email address that's associated with your username. And in the to field of that email, you put the plus sign, the number 1, the area code and phone number you're sending the fax to, little @ symbol, and then the account realm. And then you just need to attach a PDF or a TIFF file and click send, right? So the system looks at the to field, the from field, and the attachment. It doesn't look at the subject line. It does not look at the body of the email. So anything you type in those 2 fields will not be transmitted. Right? So if you want a fax cover sheet, you actually need to include that as part of the PDF attachment or TIFF attachment. And just make sure you only have 1 attachment per email. And that should do it. Oh, and so the largest fax I've been able to send out was 7 megabytes. It's a lot of pages. So definitely keep it under that, if at all possible. Now up here towards the top, we have caller ID. If I click on that, opens up the box. This is becomes your default company caller ID. This is for your VoIP phones, right? This is what they'll default to when they make an outbound call. Now, this pull down is from any of your main numbers, right? So any of these 6 numbers I have here, I can choose. The streaming software that I'm using does not like some of my pull downs, so I'm not going to click on that. Then here you have the company caller ID name. This is an optional field. This allows you to input up to 15 characters, including spaces and special characters in this box. We will then associate that text with your phone numbers when your VoIP phones are making outbound calls. Next up, the system wants the company emergency information, or E911. It wants a North American address, and then you click on Save Changes. Once you click on Save Changes, if you inputted anything under the company caller ID name, that information gets transmitted to the other carriers who support this feature. It takes them approximately 3 business days to update their servers. Now, once that's in place, again, when you make an outbound call from your VoIP phones, right, we are transmitting this information as part of your outbound caller ID. It is possible that as the call routes to the destination, it can go through a carrier that does not support CNAME. If that happens, your CNAME does not information does not get transmitted to your destination. More problematic than that is when you're making calls to cell phones. The cell phone carriers control everything that shows up on the cell phones on their network, right? So they're the ones who put spam risk or telemarketer, and they don't participate in CNAME. Now, most carriers, at least that I've encountered with customers, is that the cell phone carriers are willing to charge their subscribers to have CNAME show up for all their calls that show up on their cell phones. My carrier, for instance, wanted $10 a month for this feature. I decided that was not worth it, so I have not. So I get calls on my cell phone that don't show the CNAME information. All right, next up we have hold music. Dash allows you to upload your own media files, specifically .wav, .wav, and .mp3 files. You want to make sure they're recorded in mono, not in stereo, and that they're under 1 megabyte in size. Now, you can upload stereo files. However, phones in general only have one speaker, so the stereo file may not play back properly when you listen to it over the phone. Like you might get a staticky version of your file, you might just hear silence. So that's why you want to record in mono and upload a mono file. You can click here on the upload button. You could name the file. This is how it will appear on your Dash account. You click on the browse button to find the MP3 or WAV file on your computer or device. Click on the little up arrow icon here to upload it, and then you click on Save Changes. Now, hours is actually part of main number, so I'm just going to click on main number. This page sometimes takes a little bit to load. First up, we have your main company numbers. So these are those 6 phone numbers that we saw on the dashboard page. Right? These are your general contact numbers, right? So your like new customers especially will probably call you on one of these numbers. Whereas maybe some of your established customers may have direct contact with your staff members, right? Specific phone numbers. Now, down here, you have 2 options. You can add from spare numbers or you can buy numbers. So add from spare, and any place where you can assign a phone number, you'll have the option to add from spare. That means you're reusing a phone number, right? So it's a number that falls under that spare listing. If we click on this, and you see here, I have these 4 phone numbers that are available for me to reuse, right? So I may have had them assigned to a user earlier and then unassigned it. So like I could add this one here and click Add Selected. And now I have 7 main numbers. Now, if I decide I no longer want to use one of these numbers as a main number, right, I can click this Unassign box next to any of the numbers. Now, I have not removed those numbers from my account. Now they're spare numbers, right? So if I go back here, click from spare or add from spare. All right, this list will have expanded with those 2 numbers I just added or unassigned. Now, by numbers is how you add new numbers to your account. If you click on by numbers, you have the option here for local or toll-free. We'll start with toll-free. You choose the toll-free prefix you want to work with. Click on search, and it's going to generate a list of phone numbers that are available. Now, this list of numbers is dynamic, meaning you're actually competing with other people who are looking to buy numbers. So you want to complete the whole process and not stop halfway or pause halfway. So you go through this list, look for a number that you like, You click add. You can add multiple numbers from this list, right? But then you would click on by numbers. Now the system is verifying that the number was available, and then it's adding it to my account. Right? So for instance, I wouldn't want to add a number to my cart and then go off to lunch, come back, and then try to click by numbers. It's possible the number I selected was taken while I was out to lunch. Right? Local is similar, but you need to know the area code you're working with. Click on search. Now, even for the toll-free numbers, it's possible you will get this message. And that means that the area code, or in the case of the toll-free numbers, the toll-free prefix, is exhausted, right? There's no readily available numbers in this area code. All right, so 310, that's in Los Angeles area. There's a lot of people with lots of cell phones. That's why this particular area code is exhausted. Now, you may want to use Google to search for what's referred to as an overlay area code or even nearby area codes. Then you would click here to go back to search, and you would then search that overlay. 424 is an overlay for 310. And you see I have plenty of numbers to choose from. Now, what an overlay means, that means there's two area codes that have the same geographic boundaries. Right? They cover the same area. It means that those people have 10-digit dialing, which is probably the case for most people in the US these days, and Canada for that matter. Now, it is possible that you could run into an area where all the area codes are exhausted. In that case, or in those cases, you can email our porting team, right? porting at virtualpbx.com, and just list the area code or area codes that you're interested in getting a number in. We'll double check to see if there was something available or that we may have that was like reserved in some fashion. Or we can try to do what's called a back order. And that just means we're saying, hey, when a number in this area code becomes available, we want to try to acquire it. Now, in the case of a back order, we can't give you any kind of ETA. Right? Because we're waiting on someone else to give up their phone number before we can even attempt to get one. Now, every account has at least some amount of phone numbers included as part of your monthly plan price. If you go over that, there is going to be a charge per number per month. That's going to vary a little bit by plan. If you just signed up, I believe for local and toll-free numbers, it defaults to $1.99 per month per phone number. You can check that on the plan, the pricing page. All right, I'm going to assign that one as well. Now, you notice over here to the right, I have a little gear icon. This allows you to set up the caller ID for a number, right? So you can set up the outbound CNAM here, and you can turn on the ability to accept inbound CNAM. So that way the person's name would show up on your staff members' phones, for example. Right, E911, you can set up the E911 address for every phone number. And this is useful because then you can use these individual addresses to assign to your VoIP phones, right? So that way your VoIP phone, your staff members with VoIP phones will have the proper address associated with their location, right? And this is the information that gets transmitted to emergency services, right? So you obviously would want the correct address if someone dials 911 from your VoIP phones. The prepend feature, this is for your VoIP phone users. You see here, if anyone dials this phone number, the word sale will show up as part of the inbound caller ID that shows up on their phone, on their VoIP phones. So that gives your staff members a heads up about what the call is likely about. All right, so once you have main numbers, then you can look at your hours of operation or your office hours strategy. You have 24-hour open office. Right? That's the default for any new account. And that just means you're open for business 24/7. Right? Custom office hours means you want to be open some days and closed others. You come down here for each day of the week that you're open, put a check mark. These boxes here to the right, use the pull down to select your open hours. And this is in 24-hour or military time. Right? If you're closed, you just leave it unchecked. Down here at the bottom, you also have the option here to say you're closed for lunch. Right? That means your system goes into lunch mode. You can have different routing, different greeting, etc. And then you put your lunch hours in this 24-hour or military time. And then you click on Save Changes. Office holidays, first up, are you closed for holidays? Put a check mark if you are, otherwise leave it unchecked. And then over here to the right, you have Add Holiday. You have the options here for single day, date range, and advanced. Each one of these creates a new row. So for single day, I have like here for New Year's Eve, right? You give it a name, choose the month and the date, click on Save Changes. Date range, like I have here for Xmas break, give it a name, start date, end date, right? Save changes. Now notice there's no year indicator for any of these. So especially for the date range, as a precaution, we recommend avoiding a date range that includes New Year's Eve and New Year's Day, right? And you notice here I have those each as a single day. Now advanced is like I have here for Thanksgiving, where I just chose the month. This middle pull down is you have the options of 1st through 5th as well as last. And then you choose the day of the week. So 3rd Thursday, November, here in the United States. Any that you add or you click on the trash can to delete, right? Click Save Changes after you're done. Then we've got your incoming call handling. So for these 5 or 6 phone numbers that I have as my main numbers, how is my system handling calls during my open hours, my lunch hours, after hours, and holidays? I have these same basic options. The first 3 will always show up for every account. Right? The 4th one only shows up under a couple situations. Those situations include if our services team or our product team basically had to create an advanced call flow for you, or if your account includes multiple auto attendants and you made any one of those auto attendants available in a main menu, that's when this 4th option shows up. All right, so first option here, call comes in, goes to the virtual receptionist. This is a link that you can click on, and when you do so, big box shows up. On the left is your main menu. This is what you can set to, for people to press buttons to navigate through your phone system. So you see here, down here at the bottom of that, I can click on Add Route. That gives me a new row. This first pull down, I can choose 0 through 9, as well as the star key and the default action. And then the second pull down is where I want the call to go when people press that menu or that button on their phone. Smart PBX directory, right? The dial by name directory or user directory. Users, that means when someone presses this menu option, I want it to go to a specific person. We'll scroll down here. Next up, we have call queues. This is if you're making use of the ACD queue feature. Again, menu option goes to your queue. That means probably going to multiple staff members, right? The ability to wait on hold until someone picks up. Queues are an add-on feature, so there's an additional fee for each queue. Groups are an included feature. This is like departments. It has less routing options than the queues, but essentially you can still have calls get routed to a group of people. Typically, you can ring in sequence or all at once, and some variances within that. We'll get into that a little bit more when we get to groups. You can have a menu option ring to a specific device. You would want to make sure that either that device is always got someone there to pick up the call or has a built-in voicemail to it. Most VoIP phones, for example, don't have built-in voicemail, so you wouldn't want it necessarily to go to a voicemail or a VoIP phone. And you can have menu option go directly to a voicemail box, right? So press 0 to leave a voicemail, right? So that because they don't want to wait on hold with anybody. You can also go to a media file. The downside is once the media file finishes playing, the call ends. But this is what you would use for like hours of operation or directions, and then any advanced call flows if you have them. On the right, we have your greetings options. This is where you say thank you for calling. Typically, you say your company name, but you also want to give directions to your caller, right? What to press to get to where, right? Press 1 for sales, 2 for support, that sort of thing. First up, we have a text-to-speech greeting. This allows you to type in a greeting that is then played back by the system on a computerized or robotic voice. There's no charge for these; they're free. This is something I recommend for people who are new to PBX systems in general. If they have a startup, they're not quite sure how everything's going to route right away. Now, the text-to-speech greeting is limited to 250 characters, not words. It does not count spaces. I have been able to go beyond 250 characters, up to like 300, but 250 always works. Now, once you type it in, you click Update, Save Changes. The system saves the file with a generic name. In this case, it'd be my main, right? Because we're in my main menu, open hours, menu, and then TTS because it's text to speech. Now, let's say I then call in, I listen to it, and I forgot a menu option, or I forgot someone's extension number, right? So I go in here and I edit this greeting, right? I click Update, Save Changes. I will now have two files called main open hours menu TTS. So that means from any pull down where I could select a media file, I won't be able to easily tell between the two. My recommendation is if you use text-to-speech greetings, after you create one, go to your greetings tab on the left and edit the file, edit the name, right? So it's something at least like main greeting one, right? So you know which one is which in case you need to go back to the original. Or you can delete if you decide you don't want it after all and then recreate a new one. You can upload your own file, .wav, .mp3, recorded in mono, under 1 megabyte. Again, the box here, you can choose the name that it will show up in your dashboard. Click on here to find the file on your device. Click Update to upload it, then save and save changes. You can choose from an existing media file. Right, this pull down would show all of your main greetings, your voicemail greetings, or even hold music files. So that's why you want to make sure you have names that you can quickly identify. As you can see here, I already have a main open hours menu TTS, at least one. I may have more. You can record it over the phone. Now, the system here says pick up a phone registered to this account. That means pick up a VoIP phone. Now, if you don't want to use a VoIP phone, let's say you just, hey, let me just pick up my cell phone and call in right now. You would first need to go under our settings here, and where it says allow outside recording, click on that to turn it on. Now you can call in and change your main greeting from a cell phone or landline. Now, when you do that, or even from a VoIP phone, you still need the PIN number. This PIN number is specific to this time of day, right? So my open hours are 9 to 5. So this PIN number only works in the hours between 9 a.m. and 5 p.m. Right? So if I call at 7 p.m., that PIN number no longer works because I'm in my after hours. One thing to know, if you already have a greeting in place, or I guess, hold on, let me backtrack a little bit here. So if you've just signed up with us, right, you don't have a greeting in place, you call your main number, you'll hear a message say that the greeting for this menu has not been created yet. It will then prompt you for the PIN number. Now, if you come back later and you want to change the greeting, right, you can still do that even if you already have a greeting in place, right? So you call in, you hear your existing main greeting play, you can enter the PIN number. The system will still recognize it and then walk you through creating or recording a new main greeting over the phone. However, it doesn't let you change the file name, right? So greeting A is playing, you called in, record over the phone. The content for greeting A is now gone and replaced with whatever you just said, but the name stays the same. And that mostly comes up during the holidays. Sometimes people get in a rush and they record their holiday greeting over their normal greeting that they use for most of the year. So just a heads up. And then you can order a professional recording, right? You click on order, this will open a new tab and take you to Snap Recordings. You can order a greeting from them. They have about 100 voice actors and actresses to choose from. They have their own pricing and their own bundle packages. They deliver to you via email. So once you have the file, you would just come back here and then upload your own file. All right, settings. So number of retries on misdial, this is how many times your inbound caller can make a mistake. Right, so in this case, I have it set to 1, meaning they can make 1 mistake, right? So they can call in, they hear my greeting, and they press, say, number 8, right? That's not a menu option. And let's say I don't have an extension number 8. The system will play the greeting again and allow them 1 more try. After that second attempt, if they fail, the system will then tell them we did not recognize your entry and do one of 2 things. If I have a default action in place, it will send the caller to that default action. So in this case, my smart PBX directory. If I click the X here to remove that, if I don't actually have a default action and they've hit their maximum number of retries, the system says, we did not recognize your entry, goodbye. Dialing timeout, this is how much time the system listens for additional button presses. So that inbound caller presses 8, right? The system counts to 5, right? 5 seconds. Oh, they meant only 8. They didn't mean like 855, right? i.e. for an extension number. So at that point, after the 5 seconds, then it sends it back to the number of retries. And if that's been exhausted, then it says we did not recognize your entry. Number of tries on, or allow outside recording. Again, that's allow you to record your main greeting with a cell phone or a landline. You do not need to turn this on to record voicemail greetings, right? This is only specific to the main greeting. Now, by default, allow dialing extensions is on. So that means when your inbound caller comes into the system, right, they hear their main greeting, they can enter an extension number and the system will transfer the call. If you turn this off, that means your inbound caller can only press these menu options. They enter an extension number, it counts as an invalid entry and 1 of their retries. And then down here, we have the suppress the playing of the invalid entry message. So if you don't want that message to play, we did not recognize your entry, then you can turn this on, and now that message will not be played. Any changes you make to your main menu, your greetings, or these settings, you need to click Save here at the bottom. It will take you back to your incoming call handling. You need to click Save Changes here. All right, now this lunch hours, right? Again, you have the same options, right? Virtual Receptionist. Again, you would have most likely different menu options and a different greeting. Right, after hours, you see here, I have it being offered to my front desk group. If they don't pick up, then it goes to my virtual receptionist. So this is what's referred to as a live operator answer option, right? Essentially, it's designed from this first pull down. You can select where it goes. And the idea being that you're trying to offer the call to somebody, right? A staff member, or in the case of a group of staff members. And then you click on virtual receptionist. This is where it routes to if no one from that first pull down is able to pick up. Again, since I'm in my after hours, I would have a different greeting in place and a different set of menu options, and possibly different settings. Holidays here, I have it on this option here where I'm saying, hey, just send the caller straight to this voicemail box. Now, this is a pull down, so I can offer the calls to a user, a group, a queue. I could have a media file play, so I could say, due to the holidays, we're closed. Please leave a message when we send you to the voicemail box. All right, or you can simply just send them straight to voicemail. All right, the main conference number, you can have multiple conference numbers if you wish, right? That's why you have the option here to add from spare or buy new. You also have an option here for custom greeting. This is a text-to-speech greeting, right? When you turn it on, you just type it in here. If I turn this off, click Save, the system has a default message, right? So when I call my conference number, it says welcome to the conference, and then prompts me to enter the conference room number and then the PIN number. The main fax box number, you can only have the one main fax box, so that's why I don't have the option to add from spare or buy new ones. And then I have here the edit fax box link. Up here, the inbound notification email, right? You put in an email address, and this email we'll get, or this email address, we'll get an email every time a fax gets sent in. The email will include like the date, the time, phone numbers involved, and a PDF attachment. Right? You just double click and view the fax. Now, if someone dials your main fax box number, let's say from their cell phone, right? They hear fax tones, most people hang up. That will still generate an email to this person. It will just say it was a failed inbound fax attempt. So in the body of the email, if it says wireless caller, you know that was someone misdialed. You can safely delete it. If it's not a phone number you recognize and you weren't expecting a fax, that's possibly also something you don't have to worry about. But if it's a number you do recognize or you were expecting a fax, you'd want to double check the call log and you see how long that call lasted. Anything under 45 seconds means something interrupted the call, right? And you may need to contact the other person to find out if they encountered some kind of problem or if their fax machine gave an error message of some type. Right, email permissions. This is designed to put your company's email domain here. And this allows anyone, like in this case with the virtualpbx.com email address, to send a fax out from this system, even if they're not a user on the Dash account. Right? They just need the proper format, that +1, area code and phone number, @ the account realm, attach a PDF or TIFF. And when you're done here, click on Save Changes. Obviously, in that outbound permissions, you want to avoid domains like gmail.com or yahoo.com, because then if someone from those domains figures out how to send a fax on your system, they can send faxes out on your account without you knowing about it right away. Right, next up we have auto attendance. This is a plan-specific feature, meaning it's available on some plans and not on others. There are a couple of use cases on why you would want multiple attendants. The first is, oops. Sorry about that. The first is what's referred to as submenuing, meaning you want to have your calls come into, say, your virtual receptionist, and menu option 1 is for English callers, right? Menu option 2 goes to your Spanish callers. 3 goes to, say, your Chinese callers. You would then create attendants for each of those languages here, right? The greeting would be in the appropriate language. The menu options would go to staff members who speak those languages. The other reason to have multiple attendants is if you have multiple businesses, right? So each of those businesses have their own main phone numbers and their own main greetings, but you have the same staff people answering calls, or you just want them both on the same account just for ease of invoicing and billing. Now, up here at the top is where you would add attendants. You give it a name and an extension number. The extension number is just going to be used for your staff members. You could literally transfer a call from one attendant to the other, right? If someone dialed the wrong company. And then you click on Create Attendant, and then adds it here on this list. You can click on the name box here, right? This is where you would delete an attendant. And here is where you decide, do you want this to be available in your main menu, or do you want it to leave it unavailable? Right? When we say unavailable in main menu, this is a standalone attendant, meaning likely designed for a different business. Whereas if you click on this to say available in main menu, this now becomes a submenu option, right? This also initiates that fourth option under the virtual receptionist. Attendants can have their own phone numbers. They can have multiple phone numbers if you want, so you add from spare or buy new. Right, you also have the little gear icon here, so you can set up the caller ID, E911, and prepend. The extension box, you can set up extension numbers or multiple extension numbers for your auto attendants if you want. If you want to change an extension number, I recommend you click on Add Extension and add the new extension number, right? And then you would click on Save Changes. Oops. Right, so then you would have a little icon here showing you have two extensions. You would click on this again and then click Unassign next to the original extension and then click on Save Changes. And then we have the wrench icon here under Settings. Here you see I've got open hours, lunch hours, after hours and holidays. So these times or dates, right, are the match what we set up under the main number under incoming call handling, right? So your secondary, your other businesses have to have the same hours of operation. If for some reason you have multiple businesses, but like one is 24/7 and another is 9 to 5, Monday to Friday, 9 to 5, you'd want to talk to our account services team. It's still possible we can create an account with you that has both of them on the same account. But in terms of how you're going to use them, it might make more sense to have them on separate accounts. But they can walk you through that and the pros and cons of each. But when you click here, right, you only have the routing option here to go to the virtual receptionist for any time of day. So that means you have to have the menu options of greetings in these settings, but then you would click save and then save changes. Next up here, we've got devices. So this shows all your devices on the account. These black ones here, that means I've turned it off on my dashboard here. Could be just you're temporarily disabling a device because someone's like on maternity leave or something like that. Like that, they don't need to be bothered, right? Red means it's unregistered. So in the case of a soft phone or a web phone, that means that could be that they're not simply logged in. It could be something more complicated, right? For a physical VoIP phone, like I have down here, right? This Cisco device, right? That means it could be unplugged, network problem, router settings, etc. Green means it's registered, so that means we can send a call to it. Up here at the top, you can add devices. First up is SIP phone, right? This is that physical phone sits on someone's desk. You have these manufacturers to choose from, right? Some have a few models, some have a bunch. But you want to find the make and model of the phone you're working with, then give it a name, right? Bob's phone or break room phone. And then you need the MAC address. This is unique to each device. It can be found as usually a sticker on the back of the phone, or if you have the phone plugged in, usually under like its status or basic settings, the MAC address is listed there. And then you would click on Create Device. Now, after that in the dashboard, the only other thing you would really need to do is add it to a user. Also, here, you want to click on the wrench, go under Advanced and Miscellaneous, and click on Unlock. Now, in terms of our dashboard, at that point, you're done. You do need to access the phone's web user interface. Typically, that means you get the IP address of the VoIP phone. You enter that IP address in your the address bar of your browser and log in. Now, that computer and that phone need to be on the same network, typically, in order to access the phone's web UI. You need to enter in a URL to the phone's auto provision page, basically telling the phone, hey, go here to get your configuration file. For the specifics of that, under our support pages, you want to go to the document called Auto Provisioning Phones. It's going to have screenshots for the various manufacturers in terms of what you should look for, the proper syntax for that URL, and in some cases, some settings to double check. You go through that process, you click Update, and then Auto Provision Now. The phone should reboot at least a couple times. And then once it's done, then it should show up as a green device. So then you can make and receive calls from it. Cell phone and landline are essentially the same process. So you give it a name, right? Angela's phone, and then you enter that number, right? +1 area code and phone number, and then you click on Create Device. So if we go down here to the demo device, you see here, this is the format, right? So I gave it a name, then +1 area code and phone number. If I go to Advanced and Options, you see here, this is the default setup for a cell phone or landline. Now, when a call is offered to a cell phone or a landline, right, what happens is, that device rings, you pick up, and then you will hear, this is a forwarded call. Please press 1. When you press 1, you're telling the system, yes, you're there, and yes, you want to take the call. Now, that doesn't work in every situation. Let's say, for instance, you've also contracted with an automated answering service to handle your calls for after hours. and they give you a phone number, right? So they said, hey, just send the calls to this phone number and our system will handle the calls. So what you would do in that case, right, you would add that phone number, right, as a device on your Dash account. However, because it's an automated answering service, right, it doesn't know when to pick up or know when to press 1 to pick up the call. So in that case, up here in this first option here, it says allow use of cell phone's voicemail, put a check mark here, and then click on Save Changes. So now when we dial this number, we don't play that message about this is a forwarded call, please press 1. Instead, when we hear that pickup tone, we connect the call, right? So your automated answering service can now take the call and handle it for you. Now, if this is really your cell phone number and you have this checked, what can happen is if your cell phone voicemail picks up, we treat that like a connected call. So that means your inbound caller can end up on your personal cell phone's voicemail. Some people like that, some people don't. The other thing that sometimes comes up is this one here, which is keep original caller ID. So again, so when a call comes through us and goes out to your cell phone, right? So let's say customer Mary is calling. On your cell phone, you see customer Mary's phone number. You don't recognize it, and you've had a bunch of those extend auto warranty robodials, and you're like, I'm just letting this go to voicemail. Now, instead of that, and you can then uncheck this. Now, instead of customer Mary's phone number showing up, your main number shows up on your cell phone. What I mean by that, this phone number you guys selected up here, this is what would show up on your cell phone's display. So that's a way to let you know visually that, oh, you got a work call coming into your system or to your cell phone. So probably more worthwhile for you to pick up. Soft phone, this is a software application, right? It uses your internet connection to make and receive calls. You have this little warning message, which I do advise you to read. But once you click close here, you see here that you need to give it a name. And what you see here, this is a third-party soft phone, meaning you're using a soft phone application or a device, right? You're using a third-party soft phone. So that means something that's not the VirtualPBX soft phone app. You could also use this information to program a third-party physical phone, right? It didn't show up under that SIP phone list. You would then copy and paste the SIP username, right? Click on the SIP password box to see the SIP password. You copy and paste this. You don't want to change it. And then you copy and paste the realm. Those are the 3 pieces of information you would need to program that third-party soft phone or that device. And then you click on Create Device and then assign it to a user. Now, if you want to use the VirtualPBX soft phone application, that you need to add directly to the user. So you do not add it on the devices page. The same would also apply here to the web phone. The web phone, that uses your Dash login information to log in. So adding it to the devices page doesn't do it any good until you assign it to a user anyway. Now, for soft phones, if you click on the little wrench icon here, under Advanced Audio, if you're using the VirtualPBX soft phone, you want the Opus codec. If, for instance, this was actually credentials used for a third-party VoIP phone, then you'd want the G711A and the G711U over here on the right. And then you would click on Save Changes. And then the other thing I wanted to show, for any VoIP device or any soft phone or SIP phone, under Emergency Caller ID, right, this is where you would select the phone number and then the address that was associated with that phone number. So that way, if someone picks up this device and calls 911, the specific address that you have associated with the phone number would then be sent to emergency services. All right, the Greetings Manager shows all your media files, right? So your main greetings, voicemail greetings, hold music. You see the name here. The source is upload, meaning you uploaded the file. TTS, text-to-speech. Recording, recorded over the phone. This little icon here allows you to play back the message right in your browser. If for some reason that doesn't work, you can download the file to your device and listen to it directly from your device. And then here, little wrench icon here, this is where you would change the name or even remove a greeting if it's no longer valid. Up here, you can upload new greetings. Right? You give it a name, find the file on your computer, click on Create Greeting. It will then upload it here. It doesn't assign it here, right? It just means you have it available. Groups, short for ring groups or hunt groups, right? Departments. This is an included feature. Up here at the top, you click on Add Group. You give it a name, right, and an extension number. And then you click and drag your staff members that you want to be part of this group. And then you click on Create Group. Once a group is created, you can click on its name. Right, so you can change the name at any time. And then you also have this group call attempts. The little arrows here to the right where you can increase or decrease this. And this is essentially how many times the system offers calls to the people in the group. And then click on Save Changes. Next up, we have the members box. When you click on that, it's going to expand out. And it's going to show you all the people you have assigned to the group and the ringing setup. So in this case, this is referred to as blast ringing or ring all. Right? So I'm ringing all of my staff members for the same amount of time. Now, in ring groups, right, your staff members can take calls from their cell phones, landlines, or VoIP phones. Now, if a user has multiple devices, then the call from the group rings all of their devices at once. Right? So if Bob has 3 phones on his, or 3 devices on his user, all 3 of them ring at the same time. Now, there's a user setting called Follow Me that will not supersede the settings from the group. Right? So Bob can have Follow Me set up to ring his, his Yealing phone, then his soft phone, and then his cell phone, right, in that order. But if he gets a call from the group, all 3 of them ring at the same time, ignoring the Follow Me feature. Now, in this instance, also, like say, call comes in, right? Bob picks up and he's speaking to a customer, right? The next call that comes in, he's going to hear a call waiting beep on his side until someone else picks up the call. Now, if your device allows you to disable call waiting, you can then do that, and then you won't hear the call waiting beep. So something to be aware of. Now, up here along the top, you have timestamps. This last one you can edit to change the total duration in the group. So I can go to that. So now I changed it down to 120. I have this big distribute button. So I can click distribute. So now I'm ringing calls in this order. So Bob always gets the call first, then Aaron, then Peter. Now, if I want to change the order, I need to click and drag on Bob and bring him down here. I can bring David to the top, or all the way to the top there. We can flip-flop Aaron. Now, I haven't actually changed the order yet because Bob is still starting at 0. But now I can click distribute. So now David's first, right? And Bob's at the end. These are sliders, so I can click and drag. So like I can have multiple, like 2 people start at the front. And then I can have a little bit of overlap here and do something like that. Any changes, you click on Save Changes. Groups can have extension, will have to have an extension number, right? But groups can also have their own phone number. Now, if you add a phone number to a group, right, it's not a main number, it's not an auto-attendant number. So that means it doesn't have hours of operation, right? So it's available 24/7. That's important in case you have someone's personal cell phone on their user and they're in a group, because that means their personal cell phone can ring like at 3 in the morning. All right, we've got group features. So Ringback. So when a call gets offered comes into your group, right? We send the call out to your group member or members. When their phone starts to ring, that ringing sound is then piped back to your inbound caller, right? Ring back. Now, if you don't want that ringing sound to play to your inbound caller, you can instead enable the ringback feature and upload a media file, right? .wav, .mp3, recorded in mono under 1 megabyte. and that will play instead of that ringing sound. Now, if for some reason we're not getting that ringing sound from your user's device, then the inbound caller only hears silence until that ringing sound is piped through, meaning it went to the next device or next user. That does not happen very often. Right. Next action, to me, this is the most important group feature. Click Enable. And what this is if no one picks up, where do you want to send the call? Or what do you want to do with the call? You have a pull down here. Right? You can send it to voicemail boxes. You can send it back to your virtual receptionist. You can send it to one of your call queues. You can send it to a different ring group. You can send it to a specific user or specific device. Allow call forwarding. If you turn this on, you're allowing your staff members to make use of call forwarding, usually from their VoIP phones, right? i.e. they're not going to be at their normal desk phone, but they still want to take calls on their cell phone. You don't need to enable this if all your users have a cell phone associated with their users, since it will automatically ring their cell phones anyway. Caller ID prepend. This is for your VoIP phone users. When you turn it on, you can add additional text or numbers that shows up on the VoIP phone's caller ID screen. Right, so you can say, new sales, right, would show up as part of the caller ID on the VoIP phone. Right, numbers, this shows the numbers on your account, right, where numbers in use. This is where they're going, right? You can't unassign here or assign here. You got a little gear icon, right? So you can update the caller ID, E911 or prepend. So this just lets you know where the number is in case you need to remove a number, right, and move them around. The spare numbers tab shows your numbers that you're not using. This is where you would go if you want to get rid of a number from the account. Right, so if you no longer want it, you click on the little box in front of it. And then you see here I have the option to delete now. So I click here, it says, are you sure? I click on delete numbers, and now they're removed from my account. So now I have less phone numbers on my account. Right, by numbers, local toll-free, so you can add more spare numbers here, again, for future growth or promotions. The port link here, this lets you create a new port request. And then you would give it a name, choose local or toll-free. Now the system wants you to upload a recent copy of your bill, right, dated within 30 days. It will then ask you for the address associated with it, the phone numbers you want to port, the account phone number or the account number with the current carrier. The address information it asks for is also the information that your current carrier has on file. What else did it ask for? It will ask for the BTN, right? The billing telephone number. If you're only porting one phone number, that's typically the BTN. If you're porting multiple phone numbers, you may want to double check with your current carrier what the BTN is. Then you can download a blank LOA or letter of agency. That needs to be completed and signed. Then you can upload that. And when it's completed, it does ask for your address, right? That's the address, again, your current carrier has on file. Signature, it can be a digital signature, right? Or you can print it out, sign it, and rescan it in. But that's a document we actually submit to your other carrier. So that does need to be accurate. You want to include all the phone numbers on that LOA that you're porting. If you're porting a cell phone number, right, wireless number, we also need a PIN number. This is an account PIN number. It's a security feature for mobile phone numbers, because once you port a mobile number away, right, the cell phone that's associated with that phone number will stop working until you get a new phone number from the cell phone carrier, right, because it's going to be on your dash account. Let's see. You can request a port completion date. It should be in the future. That's something we'll include in the port request, but that's not something we determine. The current carrier, right, who has the phone, their phone number, I should say, they're the ones who determine when the port actually will complete. Toll-free numbers usually take about 3 to 5 business days to complete if everything is correct. Local numbers can take up to 2 to 3 weeks. If we get a rejection, it's generally a generic message, right? An address mismatch or authorized user mismatch. They won't necessarily tell us, oh, the street number was wrong or the zip code was wrong. They'll just say the address was wrong. Now, something like that for the address, right? We would double check to make sure we didn't have a typo anywhere. If your bill has a different address than what's on the LOA, we'll try that other address as well. And then if that also rejects, then we'll let you know. And that's everything here. Users, this is where you add new users to the account. People, the gray people icon, these are your standard users. Blue suit icon, these are system admins, meaning they can do all the stuff we've been talking about here. Up here at the top, you click on add user and you fill out this form. The main thing is that the email address used for login needs to be unique for each user, right? You can't reuse an email address. Beyond that, first name, last name, you create a password, you choose the extension number, right? You can edit this. You don't have to follow the suggestion. By default, the system will want to create a voicemail box for this user, right? This voicemail box is intrinsically tied to the user. So let's say you create this user, you add a VoIP phone to them. They can pick up that VoIP phone, dial *98. That will log them directly into the voicemail box that you just created for them here. And then the system will prompt them to record or create a PIN number for their voicemail box. And then we'll also prompt them to record their voicemail greeting, right? So get their voicemail box all set up for them right off the bat. Include in the user directory, put a check mark here if you want them there, or leave it blank if you don't. You can always change your mind later. Send emails to an alternate address. So by default, the email address used for login is what the system uses to communicate with the user for like a voicemail notification or password reset. If you don't want that to happen, right? So you want to send the emails from the system to a different address, or the user does. Put a check mark here and put in a different email address here. And then instead, the system will send those system communications to this alternate address and not the email address used for login. And then here we have send credentials to the user. I think this is important, so I usually check it. If you only need to add one user, click on create user. If you add multiple, create user and add another. If you have the send credentials to the user checked, once you click on the create user buttons, that person will then get an email. It will say welcome to Dash. It will give them their username and their password and the account name. It should also include a link to the dashboard page so they can log in. Once a user is created, you can click on their name here. Right? You can change their name if you're so inclined. Here you can change their credentials, right? Either their email address or their password. You also have the option to send them the password reset email here. Right? You can change their voicemail box PIN number here. Again, minimum 4 digits. Here's the option to be in the to send to an alternate address. Here's the option to be in the user directory. This pull down here allows you to change a user into an admin or an admin into a user. This next pull down lets you set the time zone for the user, right? So their voicemail timestamps are correct. Ringing timeout by default is 20 seconds. This is plenty of time to send a call to a landline or VoIP phone. If this person is using only a cell phone, you'd want to increase this to 30 seconds or even up to 45. In terms of how telecom works, right? Call goes to a landline, hits the telecom, they go, oh, it's right here. You know exactly where the phone is, so they send it straight through. Right? Call goes to a cell phone carrier, they say, hold on a minute, we need to find the cell phone first, right? Ping cell phone towers, found you, then they send the call through. That delay is why you would want a longer ring time for calls going to a cell phone versus a landline in a PBX system. Extensions, users can have multiple extensions if you want them to. Main use case I've seen is like if a staff member leaves the company and the manager takes over that extension number, so that way any new calls that come in or like continuing like prospects, for instance, for like the sales manager, he can then take those calls and either distribute them to other sales staff or handle those calls themselves. Users can have their own phone numbers if you want them to, right? You can add from spare, buy new. Just like in groups, right? If the user has a phone number, that means this phone number is available 24/7, right? Does not have hours of operation. Here you got devices for the user. If you click on it, actually here we can, let's see if we can go down here. Right, you have the same options here. The main thing would be soft phone. Right here, you have a new option here. It starts off saying use third-party application. You can click on it to say use VirtualPBX application. You give it a name, and then you click on create device. Right, this would then close. Then you click on save changes. Once you click on save changes, Gene here would get an email with the login credentials for the softphone app. Right, so the VirtualPBX softphone app uses its own set of credentials, separate from your Dash login information. Likewise for the web phone, right? Again, you would want to add it directly to the user, and then you give it a name, click on create device, click on save changes. And then now Jean can go to webphone.virtualpbx.net and use her Dash login information there, and then use Chrome or Firefox to make a call or receive a call. All right, user features. The caller ID number, this only works on a user with their own phone number. So down here. So you would click on this, you turn it on, you select their phone number or one of their phone numbers if they have multiple, and click on save changes. When you do that, when Bob here makes an outbound call from his VoIP phones, his phone number, right, so this 702 number, shows up as his outbound caller ID, not the default company number that we set up on the dashboard page. Virtual text, this is a new feature. So if you're a new sign up, you have this feature available to you. If you're on an older plan, you'd want to talk to our account services team. When you turn it on, then you select a number for the user. Now, this number should be a number that's assigned to the user. It can be a main number or auto attendant number. And then you click on save changes. At that point, Bob here gets another email from the system coming from the virtualtext.app site. He'll have login information. Again, this will be different from his Dash login and from his VirtualPBX softphone if he has one. He can then log into the virtualtext.app website or download the app and log in, and then he can send and receive texts from the number that's associated with it. The main advantage of the virtual text feature is you can share numbers among your staff members. So that way, like for your main numbers, for example, you have multiple people then handle text conversations with your customers. Voicemail box, this will be on by default because you created a voicemail box for the user. Transcription is technically a plan-specific feature, and what it means is the system listens to the voicemail messages and types it out in the email notification, right, to the best of its ability. So in that email notification by default, right, because we have attach voicemail to email enabled by default. So in the body of the email, you get like the date, the time, phone numbers involved, and if you have transcription on, then the system will type out what it heard. Now, if people are not speaking into their microphones or there's lots of bad background noise, right, then that's going to severely impact the quality of that transcription. Voicemail boxes can hold up to 100 messages. After that, they are full and cannot accept any more. Now, you can also choose to delete the messages from the voicemail box after that notification email is sent. Right, so that way you don't have to worry about a voicemail box getting full. The limitation here is that your staff members can only ever check this voicemail box via email, right? So for some reason, they're not getting emails, they're potentially losing voicemail messages. Now, if your staff members are good about managing their voicemail boxes, if you can leave that unchecked, so then they can, right? They can always review their emails via email, right? But then they can log into their dashboard under the user portal and manage their voicemails there in terms of listening to them, deleting them, etc. They can also call in over the phone and listen to their messages there as well as delete them. So just more versatility if you don't have the delete after delivery is enabled. Follow Me is for users with multiple devices. By default, when you first enable it, it's going to look like this, right? Basically, you need to tell the system what devices are we working with, right? You uncheck the ones you want to use, and then it shows it like starts it off like this. Now, yeah, you notice the distribute button up here and the ringing time, right? So this is like groups. You can adjust the ringing time to say 60, and then you can click distribute. Right? I can change the order. I can choose to add the cell phone, and then click distribute again. And then any change, if I want to save those changes, click on Save Changes. Faxbox, you can decide to have your users have their own Faxbox if you want them to. You have a couple options here. First is to add a spare number or buy a new number. This is recommended because this allows your user to send and receive faxes. Right? The third option here is add a new extension. This means the user can only ever receive a fax. They'll never be able to send out from the Dash system. And this puts a little bit more work on the person who's sending a fax to you, right? Because now the person sending a fax, right, has to know the extension number. And whatever fax capability they have has to allow for sending to an extension. So like e-fax services, right, email to fax services, typically don't have that ability to send to an extension number. Or if they do, they probably charge you extra for it, right? Whereas an analog fax machine, right, the person can at least be there listening to it, like either with a handset or a speakerphone, right? Hear the main greeting, then enter the extension number, then click send fax. Or many fax machines, right, you have the ability to enter a number and then like comma, comma, or pound, pound, and then the digits for the extension number. That just tells the fax machine, dial this number, wait like 2 seconds, and then enter these other numbers, and then send the fax. Conference Bridge, when you click Enable, as an admin, the only thing you really need to do is create a PIN number for them, and then click on Save Changes. Your users will be able to change the PIN numbers themselves under the user portal. The Enable Video Conference, this will only work for your Dash users, right? Your staff members. Anyone outside will not be able to make use of video conferencing. Call forwarding, you have off, on, or failover mode. Now, your staff members can turn call forwarding off or on themselves. At the very least, they can do this in the user portal. If they have a VoIP phone, they can use a feature code to set up call forwarding right from their VoIP phone. Failover mode is something you would have to set up, right? So, and what failover mode is, VoIP phone goes offline, right? Becomes unregistered. Call comes into the user at that time. If failover mode is enabled, the system will automatically forward calls to the phone number you designate here, right? +1 area code and phone number, no parentheses, dashes, or spaces, and then you click on Save Changes. Customize call recording. So your account does include most of our accounts include call recording. If you don't see this as an option, you want to talk to our account services team. When you first enable it, it looks like this, meaning the system wants you to tell it what kind of calls are we recording, right? Inbound internal coworker call, right? So coworker Aaron called coworker Bob, right? Inbound external customer Mary called Bob, right? Outbound external means Bob called coworker Aaron. Outbound external means Bob called customer Mary. And then you would click on Save Changes. Right? You don't have to do all 4. You can do 1. You can do, 3, whatever. Now, every account includes at least some level of data storage as part of your monthly plan price. Once you go over it, you just get charged on a per gigabyte basis, right? We don't just cut you off. For specifics of that, if you just signed up, double check the pricing page. Otherwise, you'd want to talk to our account services team. They can verify how much storage you have and what the overage is. If you have heavy call volume and you're recording every call, you probably want to look at AWS integration on your Dash account and have an AWS account with Amazon. You can then link those two together, so that way your call storage is stored on Amazon, which has a better rate in terms of high volume, right? Music on hold, you can choose to have your users have their own hold music if you want them to. You don't have to. Right? You would just click enable and then upload a file, right? You give it a name, find the file, click up arrow, save changes. So this would be, for instance, you want your salespeople to have one set of hold music, while your tech support people have a separate set of hold music. Right? Now this would supersede that hold music file we uploaded on the dashboard page. Right? Do not disturb. If you enable this, that means that the calls to the user will go to voicemail. Right? They're not going to be offered calls from groups or from queues. Hot desking, this is a VoIP phone feature. When you enable this, you set up a hot desk ID. I usually say just match it to their extension number. Up to you if you want to include, make them have a PIN number. Then you click on Save Changes. Now, this is used in, say, a shared office environment or for hybrid scheduling, right? So Bob comes in the office on Tuesday. He sits down at desk number 2. He picks up the VoIP phone there. He hits *11. That turns on hot desking on that phone. The system will ask him for his hot desk ID and then tell him calls will now be sent to this device, right? So the rest of his workday, calls are being sent to him at desk number 2. End of his day, he picks up the handset, hits *12, to turn off hot desking, right? Goes home. Next time he comes into the office, right? Say Angela's sitting at desk number 2. He says good morning. He's, sits down at desk number 5. Same thing. Picks up the handset, *11, hot desk ID. Now calls are coming to him at desk number 5. Voicemail boxes shows all the voicemail boxes on the account. If they have an entry here in this third column, that means it's the voicemail box that was created with the user, right? If they don't, that means it was a system-generated voicemail, like the main voicemail box, or up here at the top, it's one you created. You give it a name, a voicemail box number, and a PIN number. PIN number should be 4 digits. Then click on Create Voicemail Box. Once a voicemail box is created, you can click on the wrench icon here, right? You can review this information. This is what the PIN number and the voicemail box number, what you would use to listen to voicemail messages over the phone, or update the voicemail greeting over the phone. Under Advanced, you want to go to Greeting Media. So you can upload a file, or use the pull down to select already media files that you already have on the account. Right, so the media is the default message, right? This is what typically plays for most of the year. The temporary field here, this is for the vacation or out of office message. So if you have something selected here, this will play or supersede the media file until you turn this back to none. All right, next up we have recipients. Your user voicemail boxes already have one built-in recipient, right? The email address used for login. For any voicemail box you create, or the main voicemail box, you'd want to come here, click Add New Recipient, and then enter the email address. If you only need to add one, then you can click on Save Changes. Otherwise, you click on the Add button to keep adding more email addresses. You can obviously do this to user voicemail boxes too, if, say, you want the managers to also get copies of the voicemail messages their staff members are getting. So after you've uploaded or added greeting media, made sure the voicemail box has a recipient, you can go to Options, click on the box in front of Already Set Up, and then you can review, are you deleting after notification, and are you making sure to attach the email to the voicemail messages, or attaching the voicemail to the email message, excuse me. And then click on Save Changes. Advanced routing, this is where direct inward system access is. This feature allows you to call into your system from a cell phone or landline, log in over the phone, and then make an outbound call from the system. And instead of your cell phone number showing up, for example, it'll be your main company number. Now, by default, this feature is not enabled on new signups, right? Because someone could figure this out and basically make outbound calls on your account without you knowing about it. But if you want this feature, you'd have to talk to our account services team. Once it's here, you would click on this and you would enable it. And when you do that, it creates a PIN number. Now, if you leave this as is, that means you need to set up a menu option under your virtual receptionist or one of your auto attendants to be able to access this feature. that is not recommended because someone may stumble upon the menu option by accident and take it as a challenge to find out what the PIN number is. So what I recommend is click here under Edit Settings, and then click where it says Add Extension. Give it an extension number. Now give it an extension number not part of your normal sequence. Click on Save Change. You can also change the PIN number, but click on Save Changes. So now you can call into your system, main number or one of your auto attendants. You enter the extension number. Then the system will prompt you for the PIN number. Then you'll hear dial tone. Then you just enter area code and phone number that you're trying to reach. You start dialing out. And again, and that phone number that shows up as the outbound caller ID is this main number here, not your cell phone number. And let me go ahead and disable that. Now, one way to keep track of your outbound calls, right, to see if someone's using DISA, would be via your call logs. So you see here, I have one call that went out. It's a yellow arrow to the left. I can click on this, get some more details. This might have, normally it should show me the device used. Oh, this was a fax number. So that's why it shows up like that. So let me go to this month. Oh, so each of these tabs up here, right, you have the option to download a CSV file. So if you're good with spreadsheets, you can get more details out of your call logs. You see the green arrow to the right, that's an inbound call. And you can see here, each of these is a leg of the call, meaning, hey, we tried to reach these individual devices. Or actually, it looks like the same device several times. Right, and user busy means the line was in use, right? So the person was not available. You see here, I have an outbound call, and that came from in this case, a soft phone. So I know it was a legitimate outbound call. Now, there's a little fire hydrant icon here. This lets you to report a call. So it creates an email for you. It has the technical details of the call, and it's already addressed to support@virtualpbx.com. Please type in the context or why you're sending this information to us. Because again, all we see is the technical details. We won't know why exactly you're sending the call. Like, was it no audio? Did your phone not actually ring, etc. Now the custom tab, this allows you to set your own date range. You can go back up to 12 months. You can download the CSV file. If you need to go further than that, our engineers can go back up to 18 months. But after that, the data is no longer available. If you need your call log data for some kind of compliance reason, I would recommend you do so every month, right? Just set this for a monthly rate, click on download, and name the file appropriately. Feature codes, I've mentioned a couple of these. These are just ways for your VoIP phone users, to access Dash features directly from the VoIP phone. Now, this is also a web page on our support pages. There's also a document called the Phone Commands Cheat Sheet, which will have these feature codes but also some context in terms of how to properly use that. On this page here, you can click on the little, or mouse over the question mark icon to get a little bit more information about how to use the feature codes. All right, that's the dashboard. So next up, we have Blacklists. This is an included feature. This allows you to create a list of phone numbers that you are blocking from reaching your system. Right, so you click Edit Blacklists. If you need to create a new list, right, you click Add. Otherwise, you would just click on an existing list. You need to give it a name. And then, are you blocking anonymous calls or not? Right, you can turn this on. That means if we're not getting valid inbound caller ID, we're blocking the call. They get busy. Otherwise, you click on Add Number, +1 area code and phone number. No spaces, dashes, or parentheses. Keep clicking Add until you're done adding numbers. Once you're done, you click on Save here. Go back to Settings. and then make sure your list is on the right under selected. Right? So these two lists, any phone numbers on these two lists, they're being blocked. Right? So anyone from those numbers who dial my numbers, they get busy tone. Once they're over here to the right, click update. So now you know you're up to date. Next up, we have the Fax Manager, included feature. You can see your inbound fax here. Click on the appropriate fax box. You see the date and the time, phone number, the phone number it went to, number of pages. You can download the file. You can click on details. You can also choose to delete them. Outbound faxes, again, you select the fax box. All right, so anything that you see failure on, that means we had a problem communicating with the other phone number. Now, that could be that the number was busy. That could be we connected initially, but then something interrupted the fax attempt. You can click over here on this last icon, the 3 horizontal lines there. Sometimes in this information, there'll be more it can give you a reason for why it failed. Most of the time, it just says success false, so that you already knew that. So that means you may need to contact the other person. Now, this log here, shows, what number it came from and what number it went to, so you can make sure that, like, you can dial this number and does a fax number, fax tone pick up or not, right? If you don't get any fax tones, invalid phone number. The email to fax logs tab. If you have anything here, that means the system had a problem processing the request itself, meaning we didn't actually dial the other number. You see the email address used, the to fields, so you can make sure those are in the correct format and from the correct email domain, right? So sometimes what can happen is your staff member might use their personal email address by mistake. That would fail, right? Because they're not on your company domain. You have a little eyeball icon here to the far right, and under errors, you can see, in this case, there was not a valid attachment. That could be there was no attachment, right? The person forgot to include an attachment, or they attached a JPEG file or something other than a PDF or a TIFF file. Number Manager, this just takes you to your spare number page. Reports, this will open up a new tab and take you to reports.virtualpbx.com. This is a plan-specific feature. It's available on some plans and not others, and basically allows you to create your own reports. Now, it doesn't show up properly here on the streaming software, but on our YouTube channel, you can go under videos and do a search for the advanced reporting demo, or advanced reports demo, excuse me. And that shows you what you can do, or some of the things that you can do with this. If this is a feature you're interested in adding, you'd want to talk to our account services team. Voicemails, this takes you to the voicemail manager, so you can go to the individual voicemail boxes, i.e. if a voicemail box is full. All right, you can click on it. You can see the new messages. You can see the listened messages, the date, the time, phone numbers involved. You can play it back and download it. As an admin, you can also click on a message and move it to a different voicemail box. Right, you could also change its status. All right, so I can mark this one as new. Likewise, I can mark it for deletion, etc., to get rid of it if this voicemail box is full. Up here, we have ACD queues. ACD stands for Automatic Call Distribution. I mentioned this previously. This is an upgrade off an existing plan. It is possible you may need to change plans, right? So that would change your bill, and then have the upgrade fee associated with each individual queue. There are currently 2 kinds of queues available. The standard queues, which I'm showing here, and the ACD queues Pro. Accounts can only have one or the other, so I can only show you one during this training. However, on our YouTube channel, you can go under videos, again, do a search for ACD queues Pro demo, and that will show you some of the key differences between the two. Create a queue. I'm just clicking on the gear icon here. You give a queue a name, and then you choose either a phone number or an extension number for the queue. Right? You can have one or the other, not both. one of the differences between queues and groups. Then you have the configuration. Queue routing strategy, this pull down basically is how the queue is going to offer calls to your staff members. Round robin will equalize out over time. There's most idle, meaning whoever's been waiting the longest for a call gets the next call. Least calls, meaning the least amount of connected queue calls, right? So if Mary has spoken to 5 queue calls and Bob has only spoken to 2, right? Bob, we get the next call under least calls. And then least offers is a combination of missed and connected calls, right? So Bob has been offered a total of 20 calls. Mary's been only offered a total of 5. Under least offers, Mary gets the next call. Hold treatment, you can upload a media file, .wav.mp3, recorded in mono. For the queues, I believe you can upload a 5 megabyte file. The ACD Queues Pro, you can have multiple media files play, as well as you have the options to announce like the position in line or their expected wait time. The queue timeout, measured in seconds, is how much time your inbound callers can wait on hold, right? And so in this case, they can wait on hold for 40 seconds. The queue call limit, you can say, I can change this to 4, for example. That means I can have 4 people waiting on hold. That is on top of the callers who are already speaking to my staff members. Now, timeout immediately if empty. If this is enabled, that means if I have no staff members logged in and a call comes into the queue, the system will treat that caller as if they've already hit that 40-second time limit. The escalation call flow after timeout. So after that 40 seconds has expired, what do you want the system to do with the inbound caller? And this pull down, right, you can select the voicemail boxes, another queue, send it back to the virtual receptionist, a group, a user, etc. The zero out call flow, if you choose something in the pull down, you're enabling your inbound callers to press 0 to leave the queue early, right? Typically, right, pull down here, you select voicemail box, a user, back to the main menu, etc. Now, the system won't play any kind of notification to the inbound caller. That would be something you'd want to include in your hold music file. Over here under agent behavior, you have the agent recovery time. So after an agent is done with a queue call, how much time do you want to give them before the queue offers them a second call from the queue? Typically, we see a range from 0 to 30 seconds, right? This one's set at 0, meaning they're done with a call. If there's a call waiting for them in the queue, they get offered to call immediately. Force away on reject or missed. That means if an agent misses a call, the system will mark them away, meaning they won't be offered any calls until they mark themselves ready again. Agent connect timeout measured in seconds. The default is 20, which is plenty of time for a VoIP phone. Queues were originally designed to only work with VoIP phones. We have now enabled the ability to accept calls from a queue with a cell phone or a landline. So you may want to increase this to, say, 30 to 40 seconds. Bear in mind, when a call gets to a cell phone or landline, right, that's the end of the call in terms of there's no way for that person to transfer the inbound caller to someone else. Whereas on a VoIP phone, you can transfer. So once you have a queue set up or multiple queues set up, over here on the left, click on the little members icon, right, the person with the headset. This list here is of people who are available to be added to my queues. Now, when you first start, you're obviously going to have no one here. So you would click on manage members. The people on the left are who's available to be added to queues, right? So you can click on them. You can click on multiple, for instance, and then click on add to queues. Now, all I've done is add them to be assigned. They can be assigned to a queue. They're not actually assigned yet, right? They're just available. Likewise, I can remove people from being in the queues. Now, once I've done that, I go back here to go back to the queues. And if there's no one logged in, right, it's easier to see. You can click on Add Agents, and then you click and drag to add people over, and then you would click on Save Changes. Once you have added agents, you can then click on Managers, and any of the agents you've added, you can then move over to the right to be a manager. So now for your staff members, once you've assigned them to a queue, right, they can go to dash.virtualpbx.com, they can sign in. They'll have this option here to come to ACV queues, which will take them to this page. Now let me end my session here. All right, so you see here, there's no one signed into this queue. So beginning of my day, up here at the top, I click on Begin Session. That logs me into the queues that I'm assigned to. But you see I'm red, right? So that means I've marked away. So I'm not ready to take calls yet. Now, when you initially get started with queues, or anytime your devices change, the user should click on this little phone icon here to the right of where it says away and choose their default device. Now, this default device is their default queue device, right? So that means the system will only send queue calls to this device. So it's a way for them to know, oh, this is a queue call versus any other call if they have multiple devices. Then click on the handset icon again, and then they would change their status to ready. Right, now my bar turns green, meaning, hey, I'm ready, waiting to take a call. When I'm being offered a call from the queue, my bar here turns a light blue. When I'm on an inbound connected queue call, it turns a dark blue. If someone dials my extension number directly, or I make an outbound call from my VoIP phone, this bar will turn yellow. And if I'm on wrap-up time, if that's setting, or if that that's an enabled setting, then the bar turns gold. The pro queues, they also have a third icon here for performance. So admins can view staff members compared to each other. The other advantage of the pro queues is your managers and admins can eavesdrop in on a queue call. They can whisper to their agent to help them out, right? Or barge in to basically take over the call. There's also more metrics on the pro queues that are readily available. Dynamic caller ID, plan-specific feature. This allows you to create rules to change the outbound caller ID for your VoIP phones. So here, for instance, I created a rule. I called it 408. I chose this 408 phone number from one of my numbers on my account. And I just simply said, whenever my staff members dial a 408 area code phone number from their VoIP phone, automatically change their outbound caller ID to match this number here. Right, so it looks like a local call. The alternative is this one here, where I create a feature code. So now my staff members on their VoIP phones, they dial *550. They enter the area code and phone number that they're reaching out to, and then the system will change their outbound caller ID to this 323 phone number. Monitor is another plan-specific feature. This allows you to see the status of your staff members. Right, so green means they're available. Right, if they're on a call, their bar here turns blue. You can see over here on the left, a little bit hard to see, but your active inbound calls, each one would have a box and show which user they're speaking to. The parked calls, if there's a parked call, it'll show the parking spot number. You can change to devices as well as who's busy and who's not. The recording manager, this will open up a new tab and take you to recordings.virtualpbx.com. It just asks for your dash login, and there you would view your call recordings. Right, this is if you've enabled a customized call recording on the users. If instead you have AWS integration enabled, this would then open up and take you to your AWS page so you can see the recordings there, view them, etc. Webhooks is a plan-specific feature. You'd actually want to talk to our sales team about this. This allows you to link a dash to other software. This is actually some programming involved. So this is not for the faint of heart, but you would click on New Hook and basically fill out the form. Then you would need something else like Zapier is our primary example that you would use to link dash to get further data. Now, you can also go to developer.virtualpbx.com. You can see sample code of what we have done to link dash to other software. Also, on our YouTube channel under videos, we have an introduction to Zapier webinar, which covers creating webhooks and specifically how to link it with Zapier. There are other options as well in the world. And then lastly, we have the user portal. Every user on your account has their own user portal, right? As an admin, you can't access anyone else's user portal. You don't need to, but it's there. Now, for your users, if you don't have delete after notification set up on their voicemail boxes, then they can come here and see their voicemails. I can listen to them. I can see the date, the time, the duration. I can download them. I can click on the box here and mark it for deletion. Likewise, I can click on my call history tab here and I can see my call history, right? I can change the date range. The fax tab only works for a user that has their own fax box so that they can see their own fax history. The contact list shows things within your Dash account, right? So your other users, the groups, their extension numbers, any phone numbers they have. This is not something a standard user can edit, right? This is a view-only page, essentially, right? They can navigate through to see various other things. These are links so they can actually call them directly from their devices. Oh, up here, quick call. This allows you to create a call, right? So the system will call you on whatever device you specify, and then call whatever phone number you specify, and then connect the two to you. Conference tab. This allows you to adjust your conference room settings. I'm not sure why it's taking so long. Here we go. On the right, this is where your staff members would update their PIN numbers, right? Their participant PIN numbers and their own moderator PIN number. They also have the option here. Do people start off deafened or muted? Are people playing entry and exit tones? Once you're in a conference, you can click on the plus icon to invite other Dash users to your conference. Lock a conference, mute everybody, unmute everybody, end the conference call. Also, while you're in a conference, each moderator and participant has their own little box, so you can mute a specific person or kick them out. And then we have settings and devices. This is where your staff members would set up their own call forwarding, specifically right there. Click on the little box here, put +1 area code and phone number, no dashes, parentheses, or spaces, and click on save. Also, this is where they would then turn it off. They can also see their devices here. And that is everything. I haven't seen any questions come through on the YouTube chat, so I'm going to go ahead and end the training. We'll be back again next Tuesday at 10 a.m. Pacific. I thank you for